The old man sat alone on the park bench every single evening, holding a small wooden box in his trembling hands. People passed by him every day. Some pitied him. Some ignored him. Some wondered why he stared at the road as if he were waiting for someone who never came. But nobody knew the truth. Inside that small wooden box was a letter he had promised to deliver 50 years ago. A promise he failed to keep. And today, after half a century of silence, someone was finally coming to hear the truth. But the shocking part wasn't the letter. It was who the letter was meant for. And when that person finally arrived, the old man's secret would change two lives forever. Stay with this story, because the ending will reveal a truth that proves one forgotten promise can shape an entire lifetime. 50 years earlier, the town of Greenwood was small, quiet, and full of simple dreams. Among its people lived two inseparable friends, Daniel and Michael. They had grown up together since childhood, sharing everything: school lunches, scraped knees, secret dreams, and late-night talks about the future. Daniel was the dreamer. He wanted to see the world. Michael was the loyal one. He believed life was about protecting the people you loved. But there was someone else who quietly changed everything. Her name was Emma. Emma had the kindest smile anyone had ever seen. She worked at the small town library, where Daniel often spent his afternoons pretending to read books while secretly watching her laugh with visitors. Michael noticed it long before Daniel admitted it. "You love her," Michael teased one evening. Daniel laughed nervously. "No. I just like talking to her." Michael shook his head. "You look at her like the sun rises from her smile." Daniel finally admitted the truth. He loved Emma. But there was one problem. He was too afraid to tell her. Days turned into months, and months turned into years. Daniel wrote countless letters to Emma, pouring his heart onto paper. But he never had the courage to give her even one. One evening, everything changed. Daniel received a letter from the army. He had been called to serve. War was beginning, and young men were leaving the town every week. Daniel felt his heart sink. He knew he might never return. That night, he sat with Michael under the old oak tree near the river. In his hands was a small wooden box. Inside it was a letter. "Promise me something," Daniel said quietly. Michael looked at him. "What is it?" "If I don't come back, give this letter to Emma." Michael stared at the box. "You'll come back," he said firmly. But Daniel shook his head. "Promise me." After a long silence, Michael nodded. "I promise." Daniel smiled for the first time that night. 3 days later, he left for war. Emma stood at the train station with the rest of the town, waving goodbye to the young soldiers. She didn't know that Daniel loved her. And she didn't know that somewhere in Michael's pocket was a letter that could change her life. Weeks passed. Then months. Then one cold winter morning, the town received terrible news. Daniel had died in the war. The entire town mourned him. Emma cried for days, though she never fully understood why her heart hurt so deeply. Michael attended the funeral quietly. And in his coat pocket, the wooden box still remained. He told himself he would give the letter to Emma soon. But every time he saw her, something stopped him. Something he couldn't explain. Days became years. And slowly, the promise faded into silence. 50 years passed. The small town of Greenwood changed. New buildings replaced old ones. Children grew up and moved away. But one man never left. Michael. Now an old man, his hair gray and his hands shaking with age. Every evening he walked to the same park bench. And every evening he carried the same wooden box. Inside it, the letter. A promise he had failed to keep. For years he had told himself he would finally deliver it. But life had moved forward. Emma eventually married someone else. She had children. Then grandchildren. Michael stayed alone. Because the truth was something he never dared to admit. He had loved Emma too. But he had never betrayed Daniel's trust. Instead, he chose silence. And that silence followed him for 50 years. Until one evening, something unexpected happened. A young woman approached his bench. She looked strangely familiar. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you Michael Carter?" Michael nodded slowly. "Yes." The young woman smiled gently. "My name is Lily. Emma was my grandmother." Michael's heart stopped. Lily continued. "She passed away last week." Michael felt the world grow quiet around him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Lily sat beside him. "Before she died, she told me something strange." Michael gripped the wooden box tightly. "She said there was a man in the park, who had something that belonged to her." Michael's eyes filled with tears. After 50 years, the moment had finally arrived. With trembling hands, he opened the wooden box. Inside was the letter. Still sealed. Still waiting. "I was supposed to give this to her 50 years ago," he said. Lily stared at the envelope. Michael continued softly. "It was from a man who loved her more than anything in the world." Lily slowly opened the letter. Her eyes moved across the faded ink. And tears filled her eyes. "Dear Emma," the letter began. "If you are reading this, it means I never made it back home. I wanted to tell you something for years, but I was always too afraid. You were the brightest part of my life. If I return, I will tell you myself. But if I don't, please know that loving you was the greatest gift life ever gave me." Lily wiped her tears. "She never knew," she whispered. Michael shook his head slowly. "No." A long silence passed between them. Then Lily looked at him. "But she always wondered." Michael's eyes widened. "She once told me," Lily said, "that she felt like someone loved her quietly, but never said the words." Tears rolled down Michael's face. For 50 years he had carried guilt. But now he realized something. Some love stories don't need words. They live in quiet sacrifices. Michael looked at the sky and whispered softly. "I kept your promise, Daniel, even if it took a lifetime." That evening, for the first time in 50 years, Michael left the park without the wooden box. And the promise that once haunted his life finally found peace. Some promises take minutes to keep. Others take a lifetime. But the truth is this. Love is not always spoken. Sometimes it waits quietly in a letter. For 50 years.